Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday morning trading room. All right, we'll get the screen share going on here. Yesterday, as anticipated, most of the session remained in a rather sideways fashion until the market closed. And then you can see here through the Asian and the European sessions, the market continued lower until around mid-session, after which it also started going sideways. The end result is we now have a very substantial opening gap above the market. So we'll see whether they try to get in there today or not. Right out of the gate, there was certainly some bullishness, a little bit of a uptick. It's almost as though out of the opening bell, you can toss in a buy, flip a coin. Heads we buy, tails we sell, and just see where it goes. For those of you who like your first signal du jour, here's your signal on the Raptor. It's a buy signal. No signal printing on the Eagle just yet, but again, a lot of reason to be perhaps a little bit more bullish here this morning. We'll just give them a couple of minutes, kind of set the tone, but I think it's safe to say the market is in more of a downtrend at this point. Well, maybe not. Here now the daily chart. And you can see a week or so before, a very, very good uptrending market. Then we kind of go sideways. We've been really trading over the same numbers for about the last week, week and a half. And this morning, here we are kind of at the bottom end. I wonder if I draw a trend line along here where it's going to fall. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of different opinions about what's going on here at the moment. But there you go anyway. There's your daily chart. Not a bad idea to reference a longer term chart from time to time, whether it's a daily or even an hourly chart. Or if you're just staying with your DTS tools, you can always build a larger chart as well. I remember someone in the room, and I forget who it was, might have been Phil, I think, is using a 20-tick Raptor chart to kind of get the bird's eye view, if you excuse the pun. Hey, way to go, David. David in early, he says, because last night's big sell-off, I faded, and he's currently long from 68.49. So pretty much right off the opening bell. We do have some attempts here at a cloud crossover signal. The cloud's ever so slightly out of sync here. Now they're back in sync. We got a little bit of a pullback. I think given the current volatility, though, I would not want to be too anxious on the buy side. I would probably look at entering somewhere around there, give the market a couple of ticks, try to cover at the hard edge. That's sort of what my trade would look like, I think, if I were trying to get long here. And what time is it? Oh, we're only 5 minutes in. Okay, well, I'll show it to you. It may work out. You know, that's the nice thing about trying to trade out of the open. There's always the hope of early momentum. Of course, the downside being the market hasn't necessarily settled on a trend. So even though it didn't print, this here would have been our number one signal. Oh, it looks like they are getting a little snappy. Maybe I will try to run this one out a little bit. So we're off of primary support, the median line, the next target. The primary resistance would be a fine target, 6,900. Very sensitive number the last few days, of course. All right. I'm going to manually take my trade to break even now, plus a couple of ticks. Thanks, David. David reminding me 68.67, yesterday's low. So we're kind of bouncing on the bottom end. Yeah, +2, Scott. +2 ticks. Double my profit. We are actually at the high probability profit target, you can see, and then some. So don't be shy about grabbing the profit that's there. I'm going to see if I can get a one and done going on today. Might be a little overly ambitious. As the market starts to look behind them a little. Looks like there's a little bit of trend line support there, maybe. I'll ready my ATR strategy. Oh, hey, that's not what I want. Let's get up there. So it looks like there might be a little bit of selling here now as we are, as David pointed out, kind of contending with yesterday's lows. All right, I'll go with the ATR strategy now, and if they give it to me, they give it to me. Otherwise, I'll have enough for a lunch out, maybe at McDonald's. Hey, way to go, Mark. Mark says, I took advantage of a late filter entry signal. Ah, look at that. Beautiful. So I think that one's pretty much coinciding with the signal that we're in. And again, the late filter entry, very reliable signal. here on the Falcon. It occurs when your filter goes out of sync, comes back into sync. Trend line, however, never changing color. It shows you a market trying to shift momentum, but then the momentum shift does not take. And what ends up happening is you, in this case, chase the sellers out and the buyers start to push the market higher. People often asking about stop strategies as well. Which one is best? Because we have so many here to choose from. You need to get the idea of best out of your mind. You have different stop strategies to suit different market conditions, as well as your own personality. Some people are not content to leave this much in open profit, right? They would much rather take the early stop out and grab the extra $75, $80. Whereas other people cannot tolerate the market going along without them, and therefore they need to run a looser stop. Generally speaking, however, if you put your stop strategy on and it seems to be following the market pretty well, that's probably good enough. There are advantages and disadvantages for all the different stop strategies. Oh, I think we're going to stick here around the median line. Might get bumped out. Yeah, it's not looking all that promising here at the moment. They're stuck. And now we've actually produced a counter trend signal, the number 2 signal. We're going to get tagged out here in a second. glimmer of hope. Nope. Maybe not. Oh, or maybe. Oh my gosh. That's the thing with trading, especially with moderating a trading room. It has a way of making a liar out of you from time to time. All right. Well, big push up, and it's looking very like it may find my profit objective, which is just before the primary resistance line. Of course, there's nothing wrong with trying to run it out a little bit further still. But I think I'll be happy to get my profit if they manage to get up that far. A little bit more hesitation coming into the market now. And is the median line going to bounce the market one more time? Can I get lucky twice? Wow. Nope. No, I cannot. Not a bad way to start the day, though. Okay, so a little bit of a bullish bent on the market, at least out of the gate. And it is likely we will see a little bit more of an advance here. The honk already into a red bar buy situation. These signals tend to develop near the end of a trend. Now, the nice thing about a red bar buy is you can either take it with trend or you can set up to short it on the failure of the signal. So if the market heads lower from here, trades below the low of those bars, then you can look to sell it. Or you can just use it as an early warning that perhaps the trend is coming to an end. Yeah, Mark says that morning gap was like a magnet. Certainly did serve to pull the market higher. And David says he's looking for a possible reverse around here. I would think at least a little short-term reversal would not be out of the question. A little profit taking perhaps. You can see here the Raptor also producing a number 2 signal. That's the counter trend signal. That would coincide with that hawk red bar buy signal that may be coming undone. I'll just put it on the shelf for now. Overall, I think, well, at least to start this morning, it's probably a little more prudent to stay on the buy side. We'll see. Wow, we're not even out of opening range yet. I just glanced at the clock. All right, a little bit of sideways trading here. We are back into the hard edge. So we would anticipate a hard edge bounce coming out of here. No signal printing just yet, isn't that something? Oh, although I suppose you could consider this signal right here, this one, right there. That would be, that would certainly qualify as a number 3 signal. The signal never engaged, but it did print. Here we go. Now we've got a hard edge bounce. This is a type of signal that it may be, well, you can wait for the second push entry. I was going to say it may be more prudent to enter above the high of the morning. although chances are pretty good if it fills here, it's going to fill on a breakout above the high as well. But obviously a little bit of sensitivity around 68.80. Now a number 2 signal that prints right after a number 3 signal does tend to be a little bit more reliable. Although we've got a fair amount of candy striping going on here. You can see the background highlights where you've got a lot of back and forth. The hawk, very, very choppy. Lots of yellow bars clustering. The falcon, look at that. The filter all broken up. The eagle still bullish, but the trade forecaster says we're coming out of swing mode into scalp mode. And it almost appears as though the market's a little bit ahead of the curve. Okay, well, they're not committing just yet. I suppose if you were inclined, we do have a nice tight little channel here. You could use your OCO order. It certainly would be acceptable to set your OCO and look to buy above. Now remember, when you use your OCO orders, you're going to right click on your chart and select your order. We're not going to use the set prices button. And these orders are live as soon as you put them on your chart. So I tend to normally set them further away and bring them in. That sounds like David might be changing his mind. David says, on a reverse, I would be a buyer if it goes back to 68.66. All right, I can see that. There's a little bit of support there. I think, a move back, certainly to 68.60. That's kind of where the market broke out before. just kind of stuck here at the moment. Okay, so you've heard me mention before about market context. When you're looking at all these signal prompts printing, and likewise you're going to get multiple signals developing on the other tools as well. But you need to take the overall market context into account. And right now, the market context should be telling you this market is very sideways. Therefore, you need to know that if you're going to try this trade, the chances that the trade is going to work out is probably a little questionable, just because, again, of the nature of the market. Now, I'm going to take some steps here and get a stop in play. And ideally, I'm going to hold my stop here above the high to start. And I'll bring my break even down here somewhere. When and if I get it, we're into the hard edge, of course, so this is always a sensitive area for the market. And where was I thinking? 68.60. So I'll throw my profit order in there. Again, if you're more inclined to try to run out your profit when and if the market starts to go in our direction, you can certainly change. You can eliminate your profit target and just go with a stop strategy instead. I do believe the market will try to press up to 6,900 today. Or at least here, the primary resistance line, 68.90, does seem feasible to me. All right, so I'm going to get ready with the break even on the next push lower. Well, that's a pretty big bounce off of the hard edge, and I can't say I'm real happy about that. Last chance for the sellers to show up now and try to push this market back down. it's not looking very promising right now. Come on, give me at least 1 bar lower here so I can do something with my stops. All right, I'm gonna manually roll my stop in above this little swing high, although I'm not holding out a whole lot of hope here for this particular trade. I do believe I'm going to get tagged out. I'll give them 2 more ticks. There we go. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to be able to ride that out. Once they reversed here off the hard edge, it just seemed like they were determined to get back inside this trading range, which is exactly what they did. Okay, so now here's going to come a cloud crossover signal, an early number 1 signal. Price is not wanting to head lower, so there's a pretty good chance they're going to want to try to go higher. So with the early cloud crossover, the cloud's temporarily out of sync, back in sync, the little bit of a pullback. Remember, that's part of the cloud crossover signal, is there has to be a pullback, and then we'll see whether or not they continue in the direction. Okay, so we don't have a complete signal just yet. I am kind of anticipating the signal printing. Whoa, there was some serious slippage. All right, well, the trade did hit my break even. And there they go. So it looks as though we are chasing a lot of sellers out of the market. You saw how quickly the market advanced there. As we stopped out a lot of the sellers. I suppose the lesson in this as well is that if the market has a trend on the day, stay with the trend. You know, as enticing as it is to attempt a short, the counter trend trades always look so inviting. But you could have bought almost any signal here, whether it was a high probability signal or not. So long as you were with trend, you would have done all right. All right, a little bit of a dip here. Come on, let's go. 6,900's not that far away. So the primary resistance zone, then we're up all the way here to 69.07 quarter. That's the secondary resistance line. That might be reaching a little bit, but hey, the buyers do seem to be pushing a little. Come on. There we go. Whoa, the buyers really lighten it up here. Okay, well, the buyers lighting it up. Come on, don't stop now. A little bit of hesitation, of course. 6,900, like I said, a pretty key number. It's been a key number for, well, certainly the last week and a half. We have not moved too far off of 6,900 as a whole. Come on, a little bit more. One more push. All right, here we go. We'll throw a profit order in there. Swinging for the fences here this morning. Just getting a little sticky. And are they gonna? No, I was gonna say, are they gonna let me have it? No, they are not. That's all right. Not a bad little trade. Offset the earlier stinker. All right, well, that was all right. Here you can see the eagle giving us a very nice little hard edge bounce into the hard edge, come out with a red bar buy. Very strong follow through on that. Excuse me. Dan is asking, what are the high probability signals on the eagle? Thanks for asking that, Dan, because it's been a while, I think, since I reviewed the eagle signals. For those of you trading the eagle trend trader, we have again typically three signals that we tend to focus on with the eagle. The first, and I'll roll back here because this one's going to be a little bit more textbook, is the trend change signal. All the tools have a trend change signal. In the hawk, it's the first micro macro cross. In the eagle, it's the trend change signal. The falcon has a trend change signal. The raptor has the cloud crossover signal. Essentially, it's the first signal where everything is in sync after the band changes direction. So the band goes here from bullish to bearish. We now have a red filter. We have a red signal, red bars, a bearish band. That is your first in sync signal. You'll also notice that I have the ATR line on here. If you want to know how to do that, if it isn't already standard on your eagle, this was actually mentioned to me by Mike Filiguera, a very astute trader, and Mike mentioned, he said, hey Eric, have you ever put the ATR on your eagle to act as a little bit of a filter? And I said, no, I haven't, but I started playing with it, and he's right, it makes a darn good filter. So what you want to do is you want to go here to your IW assortment, and you want to find right here, IWTM ATR Trail. You just double click on that. It will show up in your assortment down here. And actually all it is what the trade manager uses to plot your ATR stops. Oh, bear with me. I didn't need to apply all that. There we go. Okay. That is your first high probability signal. The second signal, again, you're going to have some overtones for the raptor because the eagle and the raptor are very closely related because of the band. We have, in a downtrend, we have the green bar sell, and in an uptrend, we have the red bar buy. So just like with the raptor, when the market encounters the hard edge, we anticipate a reaction. And when that reaction comes about, in the case of an uptrending market, we're going to produce red bars, but it's going to have a buy signal. And in a downtrending market, we're going to produce green bars, but it will have a sell signal attached. This is not to be confused with the red bar buy, green bar sell that we get in the hawk, which tends to be a very weak signal, or a signal that develops near the end of a trend. Yes, I know, we're not very original. I should have thought of different names, but the red bar buy, green bar sell just seemed to work out that way. Kind of a follow-up signal is just your typical hard edge bounce. Again, this would be a signal that develops with trend. The third high probability signal with the eagle is what we call a rule of three. A rule of three tends to develop at the end of a trend. So this is your eagle counter trend signal. As with all counter trend signals, first and foremost, you must have something resembling a trend, right? You can't have counter trend if you don't have a trend first. All right, so now here is our trend. With the counter trend, with the eagle, you're going to start producing signals against the band. So there's signal number one. Here now is signal number two. Typically, the market will give you three signals against the band, hence the name, the rule of three. But you can already consider buying a rule of three after just two signals if you have a trend and if you have a test of the extreme and a possible failure, right? So at this point, it's starting to look like the market's no longer going to or is able to continue the downtrend. Therefore, we can look for a possible reversal. There is no rule. There's lots of counter trend signals here. Right? There's one, there's two, there's three. And yes, it did work out. Here's one, here's two, here's three. And yes, this did work out. But there is no rule of three if there is no trend. Right? You have to have a trend before you can have a counter trend. Here is a rule of three that again only printed two signals, but you had your little bit of a test of the extreme. Here was another test. And then the market's producing signals against the band. Therefore, you start to think, okay, maybe the market's going to reverse. As with most counter trend signals, you don't actually have to take the counter trend. If the market is truly changing direction, you will get a with trend signal. And you can see that occurred right here, where we had our trend change signal. This is probably pretty much as close to a textbook rule of three as you're going to get right here. So we have something resembling a trend. The market pulls back to the hard edge. We start to produce buy signals in a downtrending market. All this time, the band is bearish. We're producing buy signals. Here is a couple tests of the extreme, suggesting the market's not going to head any lower, and then it starts to go the other way. Right, so those are your basic eagle signals that we focus on. And the market's at a real crossroads now, I would think, being so close to 6,900. This is where a lot of selling has occurred. It was prior support for the market, but when prices broke through, it's now potentially going to act as resistance. Not so sure I want to get too anxious on the short, although here is a first micro macro cross lower, and it's also coinciding with a failure of a red bar buy. The trend change signal here on the Falcon already, and you do have a second push opportunity there. So you could set it up like this and look to take advantage of this trend change signal, that one right there. But like I said, counter trend signals always a little bit dicey. I would open up to the idea of a short. If the market comes up here, challenges 6,900 again, and then fails again, that would kind of tell me that the top is in. We have a little bit of a double top type thing going on. And as such, it would be safer to short at that point. Right now, you can see we're still getting a lot of green warning dots cropping up and that sort of thing. Okay, here we go. We have got another little bounce off of the Falcon trend line here. Oh, and did they slip me at all? Oh, they did too. Slipped me a couple of ticks. Let's see if I can get those back. And I think a move back here to the median line would be very ambitious. Because it is counter trend, though, I would be quite content with my profit target, which you can see is pretty close to the top end here of the trading range. Again, there's going to be more buying pressure, I think. And a possible retest of the high. All right, are they going to drift down there? All right, let's get this trade to break even. Come on, just a little more. I'm going to really pinch this trade now. There we go. Hooray! All right, it looks like they may actually fall off to the median line. I didn't think they had that much in them, but we'll see. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with taking my profit target, even if the market falls off much further from here. It is a counter trend move. You know, those kinds of things you got to take into consideration. As well as it being kind of mid-morning now. The crude oil report, I'm just looking at what happened here in crude. It seems to, well, it went down really quick. Here now, crude oil on the rafter. It looks as though the news or the inventory report hit here fell off very sharply. It would have been very difficult to get in on these orders. You can see the volume, like 35, 91. There were lots of orders there. It's just the market moves so fast. And as we get closer toward where it actually settled in, you can see the volume on each bar increasing. But after that, nada. Look at that. What a terrible looking chart that is. Oh, it looks like they, last minute or so, they started declining again. But overall, pretty ugly chart. Okay, back into the hard edge, both here on the Eagle and the Raptor. And whenever we encounter the hard edge, we should anticipate a reaction. We'll see whether they try to bounce up from here or exactly what they're going to end up doing. They're taking their time here, but we are getting a little bit of a reaction. All right, Nels's got a question here about the crude oil chart. Now, normally I have crude oil on my normal chart settings, my default settings for the Raptor. But because crude oil has been so terribly dull lately, I have moved it to our faster settings. I'll review the faster settings and then I'll show you the normal settings as well. If your hard edge and soft edge lines are really rough, it's probably because, well, here, let's start with the default settings. It's probably because you're running a different size brick relative to the chart itself. So for most markets, and this does include crude oil, you can put crude oil at 8 ticks as well. If you're looking at your chart and you have daybreak lines that look like this, obviously there's not enough going on within each day for you to trade. So if this is what your chart looks like, then you should consider going to the alternate settings, to the faster settings. But assuming that you're getting a reasonable number of bars and signals in each day, the 8-tick bar is what we use as a default. If you go with the 8-tick bar, you really don't need to make any changes to your Raptor because everything is already set up for an 8-tick bar. So you're going to have your one cloud will be 12 ticks. Again, these are the defaults. The other cloud will be 8 ticks, and the hawk brick size will be 6 ticks. The only change I have made to the defaults is down here, signal parameters SE. This is your soft edge cell. This is your number 2 signal. Yours will say by default 1.01. I have changed it to 1.25. That is the only change I have made. Now, if you're not running an 8-tick bar, you need to make some changes to your clouds in order to accommodate the new settings. Actually, I can show you from here. So if you go back to your Raptor, you're going to notice there's a rough relationship between the cloud sizes and the brick size. So for instance, your brick size is the same size as your faster cloud. So let's say for whatever reason you decided you wanted to run a 5-tick brick on crude oil. Okay, that's fine. That means your fast cloud should be changed to 5 ticks. Your slow cloud is 1.5 times, 1.5 times the size of your brick. So if you're running a 5-tick brick, 1.5 times is going to be 7.5. The Raptor won't accept 7.5. So you're going to need to either make it a 7-tick or an 8-tick cloud. Your hawk bar is 3/4 of your brick size. So you can go 0.75 times your brick size, and that will tell you what your hawk size needs to be. So again, if you're choosing, say, to run a 5-tick bar, then 3/4 of 5 is 3 3/4, 3.75. So you would change this probably to 4. And what that will do is it will smooth out your clouds so that they look proper. And the system will generate proper signals for you as well. Now, let's review the faster settings for the Raptor. Like I say, if you open up your chart and your daybreak lines are like this, so you're not getting enough signals during the day, you may consider going to the alternate Raptor settings of 446. And again, this is something that's come about through lots of experimentation. The nice thing about the Raptor 2.0 is you can experiment yourself. You can play with the settings, play with the clouds until you find something that you like. And of course, if you care to share it, I would be happy to pass it on to others. But this is one of the settings that came about through user experimentation. I think Floyd was the first one who recommended a 4-tick brick, and I think we were talking about the bond market at the time. But at any rate, your bars are going to be set at 4 ticks. Your Raptor settings, we're going to change the relationship just slightly. We're going to have the fast cloud again at 4 ticks. The slower cloud will be at 6 ticks. And then your hawk brick will be at 4 ticks. So 4, 4, 6. Yeah, now this is the settings that I have for crude oil right now. I have a 4-tick chart, and then I have my 4, 4, 6 settings on the clouds and the hawk brick. The faster settings will work also for those markets trading at 1250 a tick or higher. So that will include the E-mini S&P, soybeans if you're inclined to trade the grain markets. And all it does is it helps stretch out your chart a little bit. Like I say, if you, here, just as a for instance, so you can see what this looks like. So let's say we do the Australian dollar on this Raptor. So you open up your chart and this is what it looks like. Well, how are you going to trade this? You're getting 1, maybe 2 signals per day. Okay, that's fine if you want to take like a position trading point of view where you may enter the signal and then sit on the trade for a day or two. Okay. But if you're looking to day trade, this is impossible to day trade. Therefore, you would need to change your settings. So we're going to change the chart size. Going to go into the data series window, change the chart size to 4 ticks. And we will apply that. And now you can see, okay, well, obviously we have more bars now, but we've also made a bit of a mess of our clouds. So we need to adjust our clouds. So we go into our indicator window, we go to the Raptor, and we change the clouds. So a 6-tick slow cloud, a 4-tick fast cloud, and a 4-tick hawk. And like I said, feel free to experiment. That was part of the reason we unlocked the programming for the Raptor, is so that you could experiment with the settings. And now you can see everything looks a little bit more normal, doesn't it? And we actually have a few more signals to choose from. So if I were trading the Australian dollar, these are the settings I would use. And if you find you're still not getting enough signals, well, you may need to adjust it a little bit more. Maybe, I don't know if I want to go down to a 2-tick brick. but you could try it. You could go a 2-tick. Oop. So go to the data series. We'll make that 2. And again, you see when you change your brick size, you see what a mess it makes of your clouds. You're not going to get any of the signals printing correctly. So we go now to the Raptor, and we'll have to speed this one up as well. Maybe go with a 244. And like I said, you can experiment. You can play with it, see what seems to work. Okay, that still doesn't look right, so maybe we'll try a 224. All right, a little smoother, and certainly a lot more signals developing. You need to balance this also with your timestamps. You don't want your signals developing like every 10 seconds because you won't have time to make up your mind about the signal. But overall, for the Australian dollar, this does not look too terrible. See, the charts look normal. I'm using air quotes when I say normal. And you're getting enough signals here. You also want to make sure that the signals have some follow through. It's not necessarily going to be that every signal works out, but that you at least have enough follow through that you can find your high probability target on the signal. Not that you're producing a bunch of false signals. But like I say, part of the reason we did what we did with the new Raptor is that you could play with the settings. You could experiment based on the market that you're trading and try to find the settings that'll work best for you. Okay, well, we're still in a little bit of a slide here. Not quite sure whether the sellers are going to be able to regain the market. They made a very good push lower, all the way back now to the median line. This, again, is where the buyers kind of picked it up last time, off of the 68, 67 zone. And that's where we find ourselves once more. So I think it's probably going to spark a little bit of buying here. We'll probably see the buyers show up, try to push the market a little bit higher. And then it will push, it's going to come to shove, and we'll see who is actually in control here. Don't know if we're going to get another trade going on here before we close the room out, but that's kind of how we're setting up. Well, look at the sellers go. My goodness. Well, I have to admit that number one signal that printed here on the Raptor, a lot more follow through than I thought we were going to see at this point. The Falcon actually giving a very nice little late filter entry signal. I missed that. And again, very high probability signal. You don't mind taking a chance on those just because you know they have a tendency to work out so well. And then here, the Hawk, of course, we're getting some signals also. The Eagle with a quick little trend change signal here. I still think we're going to get some bullish pushback. I can't see the buyers, after their huge effort this morning, giving it up without at least one little rally left in them. But at this point, I think we are probably in a bear market here now. The day session, we've got this little bit of a break. You could call this a tiny little wedge that formed. Normally these break this way, but not this one. This one's seeming to let go on the bottom end. Of course, if we stay below these lows, then it's looking like the market may stay to the short side. Maybe get back down here even to 6,700. All right, boys and girls, that's where we'll call it a day today. If you're going to continue trading today, like I said, I think a little bit of a bullish pushback is possible. But other than that, we are in a bear market now. So I think you got to stay looking short. All right, I will see you again tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Bye for now.